Welcome back to page 121. Today we're going to take a look at the Druid class in AD&D. I think a very underrated class. We're going to look out of the Player's Handbook and the supplemental stuff that came in Unearthed Arcana in 1985. I love the Druid class. I think it's undervalued, at least at my table. I've only had a handful of Druids in all the years I've been DMing. Some multi-class Druids, to be sure. Ranger Druid is still, it's a very popular one at our table, but straight Druids I've only had a handful over the years. I played one. There's an active one played by my one of my players, Roy. And other than that, we had a high-level one who left our campaign years and years ago. So Druid is an interesting class. I'm going to look at some of the ways we've tweaked the class a little bit, just a couple of house rules we've added to it, and why I think it's a quality class. The other thing I want to do is announce, yay, my first Patreon rewards is coming. As of the making of this video, it will be available. I will have already sent it to my existing patrons. And it's just the beginning, the lore behind keep setting, a dungeon setting, a ruin that I've devised, as well as the outer area encounters, the encounters in the courtyard, and then this will continue down below into the dungeon level, things like that. It is not written specifically for Greyhawk. It is not written, it could be AD&D, it could be any kind of old school role-playing. I've kept it as generic as I felt I could. I don't challenge anyone's copyrights or ownerships or anything. It's just something I cobbled together and I hope people would like. It's the first time I've ever written a dungeon for someone else's reading, so I'm interested in feedback on it as well. So right now I don't have levels on my Patreon. A $5 patron will get you the first chapter, and then I'm going to be releasing it as I go forward. I'm not promising a new release every single month. I'm going to try, but life's getting in the way lately. And I'm doing what I can to keep up with any of the commitments to the channel. So as I'm working around life commitments, I will also be working with the channel, and as much as I can, I will be putting stuff out on my Patreon. I may add tiers later where you get something if you join at a higher level. I haven't decided that yet. I'm not going to bother with that right now. So you can join at any level, and you would get at least the first installment of this particular adventure. I hope you like it. There's a new magic item in there that I've designed as well. I hope you like that. I'm excited about it. I've had a lot of help from my son Patrick on this one. He's done quite a bit of editing for me, and he drew up the keep grounds and things like that for me and helped me get it all together. So accolades, Patrick. I really appreciate the help. I hope you guys like it. Please take a look at it and support the channel and help me move some of life's impediments out of the way, if you take my meaning, and be able to devote as much or more time to the channel as I have been. So that's all I've got. That's the sales pitch. Today we're going to go back to topic at hand, which is the Druid in AD&D. All right, for today's look at the Druid, we're going to go straight to the Druid write-up in the Player's Handbook. This is the Druid's write-up from 1978. And a Druid, as written in the Player's Handbook, is a subclass of Cleric. And as a subclass of Cleric, you have a religious bent to your character. In this case, you are a worshiper of nature. In the Player's Handbook, it talks of the Druid being a true neutral, but that changes later on. I believe the DMG changed that a year later, where a Druid can be anything as long as they had neutral elements. So neutral good, true neutral, or lawful neutral, or neutral evil were all allowable. So neutral good, true neutral, neutral evil are the three that we allow Druids to be. They can't be chaotic, they can't be lawful, they have to be neutral. So staying with that theme, we take a look at the Druid, and they're attuned more to outdoors and things like that. Strengthen, protect, and revitalize the party, just like the usual Cleric does. They do get more weapons than a Cleric. They can use edge weapons, favorite being Scimitar. Scimitars are interesting. They do 1 to 8 for small and medium, and 1 to 8 versus large, which is interesting. This paragraph talks about how they're the kind of the medieval cousins of what the ancient Celtic sect of Druids would have been had they survived the Roman conquest. Thinking on Druids has changed dramatically since this was written in 1978. That's no longer really true, but for D&D, that's what Druids are. So Druids, early on, get some special powers. At 3rd level, they can identify plants, identify animals, pure water, and the power to pass through overgrown areas, undergrowth of tangled thorns, briar patches, etc., without leaving a discernible trail at a normal movement rate. So they can pass right into a big thicket of bushes at a normal movement rate and not leave a discernible trail behind. That's actually a very undervalued power. If you get a druid in Cloak of Elvenkind and Boots of Elvenkind with that ability, they're very hard to deal with in the wilderness. I've done that as an NPC foe to a group of player characters. They weren't treating the woods quite like they should, so they roused the ire of a druid in the area. I had some fun with the players. I didn't really use the druid to harm anybody, just to teach them a lesson. And then at 7th level, the druid gains some really powerful stuff. Immunity to charm spells cast by basically creatures associated with the woodlands, dryads, nixies, sylphs, etc. Whether that includes an elf or even a gnome casting some kind of charm is up to you as the DM. And then the ability, this is the powerful one, ability to change form up to 3 times per day, actually becoming in everything except the mind, a reptile, bird, or mammal. Each type of creature can be assumed but once per day. The size of the creature can be as small as a bullfrog, blue jay, or bat, or as large as a snake, an eagle, or a black bear, about double the weight of the druid. A 300-pound black bear is not a very large black bear. We allow that to go up a little bit. We let you become a formidable bear. And this is the really powerful part of it. Each assumption of a new form removes 10% to 60% of the hit points of damage, if any, the druid is sustained prior to changing form. 10 to 60%. You throw a 6-sider. For purposes of my discussion, it comes up a 5. The druid is down 30 points. He just ruled a 5. 5 becomes 50%. He recovers 50% of his lost hit points. He was down 15 of 30, we'll say. He just recovered 7.5, roll it to 8 hit points. He can never go back to 100% with this, but he can certainly gain the ability to, or gain a lot of wounds back using this innate power. But the penalty is he can only assume each form once a day, and we don't allow it when he resumes his normal mortal form. So in other words, he only gets it 3 times a day. Each time he comes out of being a bullfrog to being a human, he heals. Out of being a bird to a human, he heals. Out of being a skunk to a human, he heals. That's the way we do it. It's strictly our interpretation, just as we allow the polymorph self to heal you 3 times. That was where we got that from, was from the druid's ability here, the way we limited it. Other groups play it that every time he changes form. So when he becomes from human to a bat, he gets his points back. Bat back to human, he gets his points back. That's fine. That's not the way we play it at my table. Druids have their own secret language and speak in addition to other tongues that they know. And upon coming 3rd level and every level after that, you get a free language. Centaur, Dryad, Elf, Faun, Gnome, Green Dragon, Hill Giant, Lizard Man, Manticore, Nixie, Pixie, Sprite, or Treantish. Not to be underestimated. That has a lot of languages by the time you're about 10th level. You've got about a dozen languages. Druids can, they use melee, they fight as clerics, but they do suffer from their inability to wear armor of metal, because that takes away their powers. They make their saving throws as clerics, but against fire and lightning, they gain a bonus of +2 on their dice rolls. That +2 has saved my bacon a couple of times with my druid. Again, not to be overlooked. These are pretty powerful little add-ons. They can use magic items anyone can use, or ones that are not strictly related to clerics. In the upper levels, they are limited number of characters. At 12th level druid, there can only be 9 of the nature priests and so on. This was one of the main areas in the early game that stopped players from being interested. They didn't want to have to fight to have their slot once they got up to 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th level, each time risking all that they've earned to go up their level. I felt that this was kind of weird. The only other class that had this was the original monk. I kind of changed this rule, and I made it that they just kind of made a franchise for you. So if you were in the Celadon Forest, for instance, and there was another 9th level druid working in the Celadon Forest, they just gave you your own little district to work with, rather than make you fight the other guy for it. Druids were so infrequent in our campaign, I didn't want to lose it. So I made it clear to players early on that this fighting fear right to party was not going to be something we were going to stick with, and they wouldn't have to do it. Now, that being said, I had one guy who did want to fight for his levels and was quite good at it. And I was able to actually disappoint him when he was going, I believe, from 11th to 12th level. He was all set for his big battle, but his opponent died of natural causes, and he just got promoted because he was next in line. I did that as kind of a larf to him because he'd done all these epic battles to this point. I just thought it was kind of funny to tweak him a little bit with that. He actually appreciated it, and it became, just kind of a thing. The Druid progression table is actually pretty quick, but here's the important thing. Druids get 8-siders all the way through 14th level. That makes for a lot of hit points. Prior to the Barbarian, the Druid actually got the most hit points of any player character class in the game. May not seem like much, but it is. And especially if you got a 16 Constitution to back that up, that's a lot of hit points. 16 Constitution getting a +2 per level. So that'd be a bonus of 28 points, which anybody would get at 14th level if they had the Constitution for it. But with throwing a full 8-sider each and every time, that ends up being a lot of points. So it'd be, 70 base points and an average of 5 per 8-sider thrown. And then if you have the Constitution bonus on top of that, you're at 96 by 14th level. That's up there with a lot of the fighters. That's pretty good. I like that. The other thing Druids excel at is getting spells. They get them at a very accelerated rate. First off, they start with 2 at first level. Plus, if you have a high wisdom, you get bonus spells. So you can end up with a lot of spells very early. At second level, you get your first second level spell. At third level, you get your first third level spell. One of those is a Call of Lightning. That was used to devastating effect in a game I profiled, a game we ran about a year and a half ago. Assault on the Orcs Stronghold, I think I called it, where our Druid used the Call of Lightning to tremendous effect. And he was only third or fourth level at the time. And then going on, now you got a little bit of a pause. You don't get your first 4th level spell till 6th level. That's still powerful. At 9th level, you get your first 5th. At 11th level, your first 6th. And 12th level, your first 7th. So compared to other spellcasting classes, you get your spells early. And you even start out with an extra first level. So Druids are quite potent. They do attract followers. They can't dwell in castles. They have to dwell in natural surroundings. They don't have to dwell in the woods. They can have a nice little log cabin or something like that and still be, they're still Druids. Druid, for me, has always been an underrated class. They've got a good opportunity for armor class. We allow Elfin Chain to be worn by Druids as well. So you've got an Elfin Chain in our game is a base AC 4. It's almost always enchanted. So, for instance, a set of +2 Elfin Chain would start as a base armor class 2. And then you would add on your dexterity, things like that. You could still use your shield. You get a magical shield. There's a lot of things you can do. So Druids actually they're a nice hybrid of fighter and cleric, even more than the clerics are kind of sub-fighters. Druids are actually a little bit better at that than clerics are. Plus, with all these extra powers, plus with all the spellcasting they get early on, Druids are quite formidable at lower levels. Or you get a Druid into medium level, and they're quite competitive. And again, you don't have to have the woodsy owl guy that is only worried about his woods. You can give him a larger calling. For instance, I did one for a character where he was worried about the world's balance as a whole. So he would actually spend a fair amount of time in cities where he would study the city and how it was impacting nature and things like that. It was kind of an interesting thing. He was almost an urban forester. And it was an idea I kind of gave him because of a job I had at the time where I did a lot with urban forestry and things like that. So it was kind of interesting to have a Druid who was actually seeking out cities and then studying their impact on the world around them, and then, of course, adventuring and things like that. But it gave a good justification to put a Druid into a city. Now we go to Unearthed Arcana. This was Gary Gygax expanding player character classes. And in a lot of cases, I think not really playtesting them before he threw them in here. I've discussed Unearthed Arcana before. I love this book. I have since I bought it. It was rushed to press. TSR was hurting for money at the time. There was a split coming up between Gygax and other people at TSR. So there's a lot of urgency to get this book to press. Because of that, there's a bunch of typos, bunch of errata, and we end up with some stuff that was not playtested, looking at you, Barbarian. But we also have the Druid. Now, the Druids can get, in this book, they can go beyond 14th level. They can go to 15th all the way up to 23. At 15, they stop getting hit dice. Then they just start adding 1 per level. So that's kind of interesting. They kind of reboot their hit points, start over at 1, and then go up to the Hierophant Druid. I've never had anybody get close to this powerful as a Druid. Unfortunately, my Druid is still existent in our campaign, but I haven't played him in a long time. My player Roy has a Druid. He's the one that did the assault on the Orc Stockade. And there was one other Druid that had gotten to be about 12th or 13th level, but he left our campaign many, many years ago. So we've never really gone into this. I've used these as non-player characters, though, and I do know that they're quite powerful. So once we get into here and we're getting into the Grand Druid, he gets 6 spells of each level, and he's able to cast up to 6 levels of bonus spells in addition to his normal spells. Any combinations, so 6 first-level spells, 1 6th-level spell, or any combination thereof. He's basically just a political creature. He's overseeing the other druids in a demanding, thankless, and typically unexciting job except for politicians. After a few 100,000 points of such activity, any adventurer worth their appellation should be ready for something else. So I'm not really sure what the idea was. I think it was to build in a higher level role play there. But to tell us right away that this is going to be really deadly dull role playing was kind of a strange choice. And then when they step down from that, they lose all their experience points, and they start over with 1 for purposes of this table. I don't strip the player character of their experience points. We just start over on this table. And then as they go up on this table, they gain spell abilities. They get 6 each. No bonus spells are awarded. So you kind of lose a little bit, but you gain these powers. You're immune to all natural poisons, including monster poisons, but not mineral poisons or poison gases. So, okay, kind of good. Extra longevity, also good. I like that. Vigorous health, equivalent to being in prime of life, good. And you can change your appearance at will. You can change this in 1 segment: height, weight, older, younger, child to adult, any human or humanoid sort. It's non-magical, so it cannot be detected short of true seeing, which is kind of good. That's a good power that's even better than a Head of Disguise. And 17th level, you can hibernate for long periods of time. I've never seen a role-playing application for that other than NPCs. 18th level, you can enter the elemental plane of fire and conjure an air elemental. 19th, you can enter the elemental plane of water and conjure a magma smoke para-elemental. 20th level, you gain the ability to enter the elemental plane of air and conjure an ice ooze para-elemental. And then 21st, you gain the ability to enter the para-elemental planes. 22nd, you get to enter the plane of shadow. And 23rd, you gain the ability to enter any of the inner planes, realm inner planes, probability lines, the 7th dimension, and dwell in the plane of concordant opposition. And then entering a plane, it gives you the ability to survive in the plane. So you can, if you're an elemental plane of fire, you're fire resistant. You can breathe fire. Elemental plane of water, you can breathe water. And then your elemental conjuring changes a little bit, and you get these charts here. So for instance, and you can alter it. You get 1% bonus based on your level. And then you get your chance here to summon up a 16 dice fire elemental, or it can be 2 to 4 salamanders and a Efreet, or 21 to 24 hit dice fire elementals. By the way, the Efreet or any genie type creature that does get summoned in this way, I do not allow to grant wishes. Again, this has only been non-player characters that I've gotten to this far, but just against player characters, I don't let them call up a guy who can give them wishes each day. And then that's for fire. Then for earth, you get earth elemental similar, and water, air, and para-elemental. The para-elementals were something everybody was pretty excited about at TSR at this time. They never got fleshed out as much as I would have liked in first edition. They got a little bit better treatment with the planar handbook, the manual of the planes, but I still would have liked to have seen a little bit more. And it just goes on to state that all creatures summoned will be obedient and selflessly serve the Hierophant. And then we go to the next page, the infamous page. Oh my gosh, specialization. I've done weapon specialization before. I just thought I'd show you it was on the next page. So that's really it on the Druid. I think it's an excellent class. I think it's underrated. A Ranger Druid is certainly something to aspire to be. You don't lose hit dice like you would with others, since both classes throw 8-siders after the first level. Ranger getting 2 8-siders to start. you lose a little bit there. But other than that, you're throwing 8-sided or cut it in half. So your hit points stay the same. So I really like the Druid class. I wanted to point out some of the highlights of the Druid class and some of the reasons why I think it's something to really take a look at in first edition AD&D. So that's all I've got to say today. I just want to thank you for watching. If you like what you heard and saw, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Leave any kind of comments, polite criticisms below. I always review them. And any suggestions for future videos are always welcome. So that's it for today from page 121. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.